thank you to everyone for attending. This is our third session of our 4-part QuickBooks Bootcamp series. Today we're going to talk about dashboards and reporting. So very, very happy to bring this to you. Today we're going to do a live demonstration again, like we have been doing in the previous sessions. And really this is to show you how we look at the books of our clients and a couple of tips to maximize the information you're getting from the reports that actually are already at your fingertips. We want to point a few things out to you. For any questions, just to get some housekeeping out of the way, we do have a Q&A box that we are going to be monitoring. And so please put your questions in the Q&A box rather than the chat. It'll just make it easier for us to respond to you. We are providing CPE credits during this boot camp. In order to be able to provide you those CPE credits, we are required to provide you with polling questions. So we are actually going to start with the first polling question. As long as you respond to the questions, you're eligible to receive CPE, which will be provided to you at the end of this session. That polling question should pop up any minute, and we'll give you guys a couple seconds to respond. There we go. How often do you review your reports or dashboards? Daily, weekly, monthly, or other? Kind of excited to get those answers. Anyways, all right, so I want to draw your attention to the second slide in our 2-slide slideshow that we have here. Again, this is a live demonstration. But today we have the same instructors that we've had in the other 2 sessions. By the way, it's a toss-up between daily and weekly. Congratulations. Very happy to hear that. So we have the 3 instructors today. I'm Laura Buitrago, a director in the Business Solutions Group. We have Joy Huffman, who a lot of you have been speaking to over the past few weeks and getting emails from. Joy is going to be doing a lot of the live demonstration, pointing and clicking. Jamie Lavoie is a manager in our Business Solutions Group, and she's going to be monitoring the question and answer box for you folks. All right, so a couple other things. Again, this is the Business Solutions Group. We provide outsourced accounting services to businesses. We are operating the SingerLewak Academy. I am happy to say that this bootcamp will not be the only thing we do. We have great plans for some other sessions that are coming up. We are looking at putting together a summer camp and then a back to school session. So there's a lot of things that we want to cover with you folks. We think this is a great platform to help business owners and other members of management. And so we want to share some of that knowledge with you and more on that. We do have a LinkedIn page. Please follow us on LinkedIn if you haven't. There is a QR code that will work if you have LinkedIn on your phone. You will find some great things on our LinkedIn. You will find eventually the video of this program. We do have a podcast. We have recorded a few episodes. We talk actually about a few of the things that we have been talking about in these boot camp sessions. So it's good to get another perspective. And another person who's on the podcast, Reg Bird, he has expertise as a COO. So he has some great operations type information to provide you with. Let me see, what do we got? Okay, I do want to say one last thing, and it is to please sign up for the 4th and last session of our inaugural SL Academy QuickBooks Bootcamp provided to you by Business Solutions Group at SingerLewak. Our last section is a panel format. We will have 3 representatives from the top cloud accounting applications, which are, drumroll please, QuickBooks Online, Bill.com, and Fathom. Fathom is a dashboard software application. I think after today's session, having Fathom on our panel will be very timely. You could see how their dashboard really elevates the accounting information that is brought to you out of QuickBooks and how it can be analyzed in so many different perspectives and just give you some ideas so that you can continue growing and thriving in your business. So very excited to have that happen in 2 weeks. The invitation should be going out this Friday. Please sign up. We'll be happy to have you. All right, let's go ahead and start with the live demonstration. Joy, as I said, will be navigating, and I will be walking through some of the reporting features in QuickBooks Online, and Joy will be speaking as well. I've already alluded to this, but the purpose of today's session is to give you some ideas on ways to customize and view reports in QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online already provides you a lot of different insightful reporting, and we're going to walk you through some of the main ones today. But there's one thing I do want to stress before we get started, and I think this really resonates here. As long as you have your accounting system set up properly, you have the right resources handling your accounting, and you are managing all your reconciliations, recording of transactions, you have proper accounting processes and internal controls in place, you can truly get some meaningful reporting, meaningful to you and meaningful to the rest of your management team. If you don't feel you have any of that, or you think you have some improvements, give us a call. Let's chat. Let's see if we can help you. Maybe it's as easy as giving you a few tricks and tips, or perhaps you can start working with us. That's what we're here for. Because at the end of the day, the more meaningful your reporting, the better you can plan, strategize, and execute on your goals. So we have here the reporting section of QuickBooks Online that Joy already has up here on the screen. As you can see, lots of reports already available to you. I will say that depending on your subscription tier of QuickBooks, the more comprehensive and integrative reporting that is provided to you. You might want to look into that. We're not going to go into that today because it is a pretty big topic and we could probably have another session just talking about that. But I do want to let you know that if you feel that your reporting section looks a little lean, it could be the type of subscription that you're currently paying for. The good news is all of them will have a balance sheet and a P&L, so that's a good start. And we are actually going to start there today. First, we want to go over the P&L, and Joy will go ahead and using this demonstration sample company file, we're going to walk through this today. So when the team here at Business Management Business Solutions Group, when we go and start looking at the reporting for our clients, one of the first reports we go to is the P&L. It's probably a toss-up between the P&L and balance sheet. As you know, your P&L basically is a report that reflects the performance of your business at a specific time. I do want to bring your attention to, you do have this big fat customize button on your upper right hand side, but you also have this great panel here with a few areas where you could do some quick customization. Joy can kind of click through some things. You can change the period of the report, whether you want to look at year to date or just the month of May. Do you want to look at May last year, 5 years ago? What is it that you want to look at? Or maybe just a quarter. You can do lots of fantastic things just by clicking around, playing with some of these buttons. One other thing I do want to show is, let's go to this compare to another period, Joy. I think this is great. Now, I will warn you that the sample file does not have prior period information. However, what you can do is you can have it provide you with a report comparing to a prior period, year. It could give you a percentage of income, percentage of expense. So it would actually populate, maybe you might want to show the percentage of expense, Joy, or percentage of income, whichever. And they can see, always hit run report. Otherwise, you can sit there for a little while. And it kind of gives you an idea of, if you scroll down, you could see the breakout of the expenses as a percentage of the other expense. You can pinpoint to see what is my largest expense. In this case, it looks to be uncategorized expenses and miscellaneous, but we will talk about that in a minute. So I think this gives you some really good information. I know that Joy, again, there is this big customize button over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to have Joy click on that and show you some of the features that are in that customize button. Take it away, Joy.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, if you click on the customize button, which is literally what I just did here at the top, if you can see my mouse, if I click on customize, again, we're going to see some of the stuff that we saw at the top of the other screen, which would be the dates. If we want to show it on cash or accrual. And from here, then things get really kind of fun. So if I want to see all of my negative numbers in red, that's something that I can do. So that way it's a quick visual for me when I'm looking, and that way it catches. I'm not supposed to have a whole bunch of negatives and expenses, right? That's not a great thing to have. So those kinds of things will pop out to us. So that's one of our options that we can do. Down here, we can add in additional filters and columns and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit more here. I can change my columns if I want to add some additional things depending on the report that I'm running. I can filter. So if I want to filter this down by, like, if I want to run a profit and loss by customer, I can do that. Again, this is a sample file, so they don't have those features in here, but it's good for you to know that you can do that. This gets us that one step closer to job costing and QuickBooks Online that we're all kind of waiting to get finalized. So there are some ways to do some of this stuff. I can also work with my header and footer. So like if a bank needs a specific statement or something, profit and loss, sometimes people refer to it as the income statement, and you want to change that title, you can do that here. And so there's all kinds of stuff. So if I don't want to see, you know, time prepared or date prepared, again, I can change some of this around. I can change the alignment a little bit. I have some different options. And the nice thing about that is once I've customized my report and have it exactly how I want it to, I can actually save that customization, which I think Laura is going to get into a little bit more when we talk about some about customizing our reports and doing some of this. Anything else you want me to add? Are we good?
No, we're good. All right, so I know, Joy, if you could break out the P&L by month, I want to talk a little bit about that. I know when I'm looking at a client's P&L, I break it out by month. It gives you an excellent visual of your month-over-month trends. I think particularly for revenue, it gives you a visual of trends, seasonality. You can really start learning the specific behaviors of your customers by scanning your revenues on a month-to-month basis. Another thing that this does, especially when you're looking at the expenses, is that it's also a good way, and we're going back to business owners having their finger on the pulse with the accounting and how their accounting department is doing. It's a great way to catch potential errors, missing information, or misclassification. As Joy just alluded to a minute ago, we don't expect to see a lot of negatives. So Joy, if you could scroll down a little bit, we don't really expect to, I see a pest control services, that's a negative. You might want to check with your accountant to see if there is a reason. Maybe you got a refund of some sort. I think again, this is a sample file, but for instance, let's talk about salaries. You probably have some sort of consistency with the salaries month over month. It runs at $10,000 a month, let's say, and all of a sudden one month you have $15,000. Time to look into why. Maybe somebody paid themselves a bonus. But what that does for somebody like me who's reviewing my clients' books is I look at and say, did they pay out bonuses? Was there an extra pay period? Do we have to book that in a different period because maybe the check date was different for whatever reason, holiday, whatnot. Also, rent, you do generally see rent the same every month. You see rent every month. If there is a gap in rent, find out why. It could be that it was misclassified as office expense, or who knows, pest control for all I know. So that is definitely another way for you to just really start honing in on the activities and operations of your business. Another great thing you can do is you can actually pop this into Excel with a few clicks. Joy will go ahead and show that. And the reason that I like to do that, and I do it for some of my clients, is not so much because we're giving it to a bank, although that could be a reason, but we can start playing around with some of the numbers, start throwing in some calculations and formulas and figure things out. So for instance, what I like to do, and Joy, you don't have to do it, but what I like to do is I like to kind of add a line between, let's say, cost of goods sold and your expenses. And I like to pop in a gross margin calculation. So I could really see the trends. You want your gross margin to be pretty consistent. Obviously, it depends on what industry you're in and what stage you are in the business cycle. But if you are at maybe a mature stage, you would expect to see some gross margins that are pretty consistent. And if not, find out why. Let's keep an eye on it. Did we maybe have too much labor involved? Was there an inefficiency in the shop? So much information and ideas can come out of this information. So I also want to talk to you a bit. If you go into the customize button, Joy, let's talk about classes for a second. This is, I believe, very important to businesses. I like to call it dimensional reporting. And what does that mean? One of the great things about QuickBooks is that it allows you to track by, they call it classes or locations. So what does that mean? Let's just say, for example, you are a nonprofit and you need to track your contributions and expenditures by program. So, you know, I'm trying to think of an idea of a program, but let's just say the soup kitchen program versus the outreach program. So what QuickBooks allows you to do when you turn on the class feature is that you can set up each program as a class. And then what's great is that when you run your P&L, you can run it by class. And so what that means is you would be able to see for each program that you have what the revenues were, what your expenses were, and ultimately your net profit for that class. I know Joy right now is setting up some examples for you folks. She's showing you very quickly how to set up a class. I do want to say that there's also the locations feature. Locations are great. Let's say if you run a gym or a restaurant with multiple locations, I think it is very important that you track your P&L by location. So that's another great feature to have. You can even have sub-locations. You can group them by state, by county, whatever it is that you want to do. I recently spoke to a company that wants to maintain their accounting by unit. So in order to maintain the confidentiality of this company, I'm not going to say exactly what the units are, but let me just give an example. So in this case, let's just say this company rents out RVs. Each RV is a unit. And so in that case, we would set up a class in QBO for each RV, which is what Joy was showing you in the background. And again, we will give you a video and you can see it, or we're happy to go over it with you in more detail. So this company wants to track the revenue and expenses by RV unit. That's way they could see the profitability of each unit and they can make some great management decisions. So let's talk about what those management decisions could be. It might be, do we continue investing in teardrop campers? Do people like teardrop campers? Do they not like them at all? Do we invest in compact RVs? Is there a specific size, 24 foot, 34 foot? I'm not an expert in RVs yet, but it could be, the opportunities are endless is basically what I'm trying to say, because then they'll really know where to invest resources and where to scale back. Or do they improve marketing on teardrop campers versus standard size RVs? Do people like the camper that has the big logo splashed all over the RV, or do they want an RV that looks like your next door neighbor's RV? The opportunities, again, are endless. So Joy, I know we talked about you kind of showing them how this classes looks like. So I will go ahead and hand it back over to you, Joy.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Laura. So what you saw me do is set up classes and turn them on. We're going to walk through those steps again, one at a time. And what I'm going to do is use one of our features, first of all, that we did, it showed you in our last class, which is duplicating the tab. So up here on my profit and loss, I'm going to right click and duplicate my tab. And then what I did to turn on my classes and locations is I went into this gear sign up here, over here in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to go to account and settings. I'm going to come down here to advanced. And here is where I'm going to turn on my classes. I hit this pencil and I'm going to click that on. I can also say, warn me when a transaction isn't assigned a class. And I would do this, I would recommend you doing this. So that way you get a heads up that, hey, you forgot to classify this particular transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that feature on. Now, depending on what kind of transactions I get, I may choose to assign one to each row in a transaction. So if I have a deposit that is hitting like multiple classes, I can assign that class to each individual item in that transaction, or it's going to be all in one transaction. It depends on your business. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do the row in the transaction, so that way you're able to see that. And then same places where I'm going to turn on the locations. Okay, I can change that location label if I don't like that terminology. I can change it to some different options here. So if I have stores that I want to be able to track, you know, I want to track the California store versus the Oregon store, I can do that, or a department or a division. I can do those kinds of things here. So I'm going to go ahead and say save when I've made those changes and done. Actually, I do want to save it. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to set up my list. Again, I'm going to go to that gear sign, go to all lists, and here is where I set up those classes. So we're going to start with this. I went in here and you saw me very quickly just create those classes so that we can do that. I can create subclasses if I want to. So since we've got RV number 1, 2, and 3, maybe I'm going to separate them between like class A versus class C or whatever, and then I will make other ones subs. So I have a lot of options on what I can do here. You are limited in your classes, so you can see here what they're telling you. You're using currently 3 classes in one location of 40. You only get a total of 40. So this isn't meant to be like this ridiculously long list. This is meant to be something that you do need to track. So grants are perfect. In this case, if we want to track by, you know, our RVs to be able to do that, as long as we don't have more than 40, we're good. So we can go ahead and add all of that in there and then be able to track our transactions that particular way. What you'll also see when you open up at your transactions is you're going to see that field pop up, whereas before it wasn't there for us until we turn on the classes feature. Now, if you try to do this in your QuickBooks Online and you are unable to do it, it is possible you're not in the right version of QuickBooks. So reach out to us. We'd be happy to help answer any questions where that is concerned. And we can go over this training again if needed be. Or again, we've got the recording, so you can always go back and take a look at it. So that's how you would set up some of your classes and some of your locations. I put in California as one of my locations. I'm going to go back to my lists. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in Oregon as well. So I can do that. And as Laura talked about, you've got some options here. A location has a different title for sales form, so you can really fine tune this depending on the report that it's gonna add on there. So now I'm in a position where I've got some structure set up to be able to run my reports. Only problem is right now at this particular time, there's no classes or locations assigned to any of our transactions. But that's just something that we can go in and obviously fix and alter. But yeah, so that's how you would set those up. And I think that's what I've got to show you on that.
Okay. All right. So what would happen is your P&L, the way it would look is that you would have a column for RV1, RV2, RV3, and so on and so forth. And your total obviously will be your total P&L. I work on that with nonprofits. I'm going to be working on that with this client I mentioned with the RVs. And so we have provided that. Also, we have worked on with restaurants, quick service restaurants that have multiple locations, and we have used the locations feature. So we are very knowledgeable about it, and I do believe it provides some very, very valuable information for you.
One
One of
thing
the
it
other
could do,
things, oh,
sorry, Laura,
go ahead, Joy,
I'm sorry
please.
about that. One of the things that I wanted to add in about this is sales tax. If you have a nexus and it's outside state, this is a great way to track those sales. So that way you can pull them out separately. So I wanted to add that in.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes, no, of course. We do also want to show you that when you do customize your report and you don't want to have to deal with the playing around with all the different areas of the customization, there you do see a green save customization button right there. Joy, do you want to take a minute to talk about that and also the favorites piece?
Yes. So when I do want to save this customization, because I know I'm going to want to see my profit and loss by month, I'm going to go ahead and click on that green save customization button. And when that pops up, I've got profit and loss, and I just titled it by month. So that way I can see what it is quickly. I can add groups if I want to. So like if I have a marketing department and I wanted to have all my marketing reports together, or if I was separating reports based on states and I wanted to keep certain things memorized for whatever, I have all kinds of options. So I'm going to go ahead and add a group here. I'm just going to call the SingerLewak. And then I will, oh, I already have that one in there. So I will use that one since I've got it in there. And then I can choose who I share this with. So I can share it with multiple people, or I can just share it with in our group. I have some options. Again, since this is a sample company file, we're limited on some of our sharing capabilities, but it is there. Now, when I go into my reports, I can come in here and I've got these different tabs up here, which we've seen in the past. We've got our standard. This is where my custom reports are going to be. So you can see I've got my balance sheet by month. I've got my profit and loss by month. I can add all kinds of different reports on here that I want to do. And if it's a standard report that I don't necessarily need to memorize, but I just want to always look at it, like just my profit and loss or some of the other ones that are on there, I'm going to go back over this way. So on the standard, you see here how this says favorites. That's because these two are starred. So as I'm scrolling down here, if I like the idea of looking at a business snapshot, I can do that. I can go ahead and star that. If I want to look at a profit and loss as a percentage of income, which was one of the features we saw that we could do that. Again, I can memorize that. So they've done a lot of these. See, they even did our profit and loss by month. So if I didn't want to have to save that in my custom reports, I've got it here and I can just go ahead and add those things on. And as I click on that star, when I scroll back up, those are going to show up here. And then I can just quickly come in and run those reports.
That's excellent. I think just more great features of QuickBooks Online. There's a couple other reports that I want to bring to your attention. I know I look at these reports because I think they give really good insight. I do want to stress that when you are pulling reports, I am hoping that your month-end close process has been completed, your bank reconciliations are finalized, credit card reconciliations, and also that there are no errors in your bank rec or any discrepancies. I cannot tell you how many times I go into a client's file and the bank rec was done by somebody at the client site, but then for some reason somebody deleted a transaction for whatever reason and it throws off the bank rec, and then we go in and help them fix it. So things like that, be great to just stay ahead of that and just keep that from happening. It'll just help you with your reporting. But a couple of other reports that I look at, I tend to look at the accounts receivable aging summary. And the reason I look at that, and I look at it as summary view, I always look for things like negative balances or just maybe something in the 90-day column that I know it has been collected. It'll just highlight for you maybe a conversation you need to have with your accountant, things like that. I know Joy mentioned, she pointed out to me, it is the Open invoices, which Joy, you mentioned that you find that one more user-friendly. Everybody has their preference. Start playing around with these reports. Look for negatives, look for anomalies, or information that just does not seem right. That does give you definitely a user-friendly view. I also look at the AP aging. Again, looking for negatives, looking for items in the columns that I don't think it belongs. So for instance, if I know I pretty much pay my bills in 30 to 60 days, I don't expect to see something in the 90-day column, particularly negatives. So,
Exactly.
and then there's another report, it's called Unpaid Bills. Again, also a similar information to the AP aging, little more user-friendly. And I do know that not in this version, but in some of the higher subscription versions of QBO, they've really put in some more interactive reports and tools that people have been raving about online. So just want to let you know that it's available to you. I know, Joy, if we want expenses and vendors, we have the 1099 transaction detail report. This is some key information for filing your 1099s. Again, you have to make sure that your QuickBooks is set up properly to track, and that's something that we can always help you out with. So let us know if you need help with that. So that will help you with some year-end preparation and compliance work. We also have sales tax liability. This would help give you an idea of how much you have to pay in for sales taxes. Again, your QuickBooks needs to be set up properly, and you need to be using certain functions in order for this report to work. So you need to be doing the invoicing out of QuickBooks. I realize not everybody does that, but I wanted to let you know that that is available to you. And it is important that your jurisdictions and the percentages, everything is set up properly. Also, I do like the P&L as a percentage of total income. That's another report that's already in here. Joy did show you how you can create it yourself. But some of these areas with the percentage of income or profit and loss by customer, profit and loss by location, she said it's already there for you to go ahead and use. And again, I keep on stressing, it is a good idea for you to have a systemized accounting process, month-end close process, reconciliation process, oversight, review. Really important for you folks to have that. Obviously, you know that. That's why you signed up for our QuickBooks Bootcamp session. So yay. There's a couple of the things that we wanted to talk about. Joy touched on this about a session ago, and we want to have a little bit of a dialogue. But before we get into that, we do have our second polling question that we would love to bring up right now, and give you guys a few minutes to take a look at that and reply to that one. While that's coming up, I know it takes a second. We can go ahead and just start having a little bit of a dialogue about your chart of accounts. And again, Joy did bring that up in the last session. Oh, it looks like we're having technical difficulties on the polling question. So Selena, when you're able to get that going, I will notice it and stop. So apologies for that, but we'll get that going. So with the chart of accounts, I want to again have a conversation. In our experience, and Jamie, Joy, and I have discussed this. Oh, there's the polling question. The key performance indicators, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to get an idea if you guys actually already know about this, the KPIs, and if you use them. So go ahead and take a minute to respond to that, and we'll get into that in a minute as soon as I finish talking about chart of accounts. Because again, this goes into the theme of, is your accounting infrastructure properly set up? So with that, we have seen a lot of chart of accounts, and we have seen some chart of accounts that are just massive. And one of the things I want to point out is, I think what happens is chart of accounts, they evolve over time. They evolve as you grow. They evolve as you introduce new streams, new revenue streams, new operations, new departments, new locations. And people tend to account for that in their chart of accounts. We did show you how you can use the class system, you could use the location system. And what that means is for an account such as utilities, you only have to have one utilities account. You don't have to have a utilities account for your Oregon location, utilities California, utilities Washington. You don't have to do that. You just have one utilities account. And then when you do your dimensional reporting, you get to see how much your utilities is by location. So hopefully that made sense. And if it didn't, let's chat after this. But again, those are some ways that you can streamline your chart of accounts. I do think that you might be put in a position where your board of directors or a CEO or another owner or partner might ask you some information that you might not quite have at your fingertips. So you set up a new chart of accounts so you could start tracking it. So for instance, Jamie and I one time spoke to a client where the controller actually said to us, we need to have a chart of account for napkins because 2 years ago, a board member wanted to know how much I spent on napkins in our kitchen. And I said, I don't think we should go down that direction. Highly likely, the reason that board member was asking that question is more because they didn't have confidence in the reporting as a whole. They didn't have confidence that the accounting department had the right procedures in place and was able to come up with good reporting. Again, we go with garbage in, garbage out, or you get out what you put in type thing. Lots of sayings like that. So I think that one good idea is I would take a look at your chart of accounts and see what you can do to streamline it. There are times that I see things like for payroll taxes, there'll be a payroll tax expense for SUI, for EDD or ETT, depending on the states. Federal taxes, state taxes. In our opinion, you probably only need one payroll tax account. You don't need to break it out. If there is a reason, you could probably just drill down to the transactions, pop it into Excel, carve out the information you need, rather than having so many chart of accounts. Because what that does is it can confuse the accounting department. It's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to misclassify if you have similar sounding accounts. I've worked with companies that have an office expense, an office supplies expense, an office administrative expense, all three of those. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, which one do we use? Which one do the napkins fall into? So you do want to, you do, sorry, inside joke, but because Jamie and I, we really did have that question about the napkins. And this was not a napkin selling company. But so we do want to avoid those type of complications. I think sometimes salaries, I have seen numerous salaries accounts because they're trying to split it up by department. Maybe that is necessary. You probably do want to have a salaries up in your COGS section for the folks in your shop, and then you want to have an administrative salaries. But you don't always need salaries executive, salaries co-executive, salaries VP, salaries receptionist, things like that. Just I don't want to beat this too much, but these are just maybe it's a good idea to streamline your chart of accounts. It keeps your accounting department lean, clean, and it would provide you with better reporting. Also, I want to point out that a lot of you folks probably have a pretty good accounting infrastructure in place. So you probably have a POS system, a CRM platform, payroll, an invoicing software, a bill pay software. You can also pull a lot of information from there and coincide it with your accounting so you can get some key financial and non-financial information without putting too much undue stress on your chart of accounts. If anyone wants to talk about this further, let us know. We have some ideas. We have done a lot of work where one of the first things we do is with a new client is we streamline their chart of accounts. And we do get that request quite often. The other thing, Joy, if you want to pull up the P&L really quick, I made a quip earlier about the fact that the largest expense accounts were miscellaneous and uncategorized. There is there was an event recently where I was actually helping a nonprofit build their chart of accounts from scratch because they were changing accounting systems. They wanted a whole new platform in place. And so uh, he wanted to have a miscellaneous, clerical, miscellaneous, administrative, miscellaneous, and just different miscellaneous accounts. And I actually said no miscellaneous, because what does that mean? If
Right.
that account, you should have one miscellaneous for some little things here and there, but maybe not. It's always good. Classification is very important. So you want to make sure that you are consciously evaluating your expenses and putting them in the right buckets. If you throw them all in miscellaneous, a lot of things could get lost. So if you notice here, if Joy, if you could scroll down, there are a lot of things in the miscellaneous, uncategorized, and miscellaneous. Those are the first things we hone in on when we see that, especially if you're looking at $3,000 a piece. And the great thing, as you know, with QuickBooks, you just click on it, the hyperlink, and it takes you right there. It shows you the transaction listing. You can see what's in there. And okay, insurance. I don't think insurance is miscellaneous. I think that should go under insurance expenses. Same with masonry or hardware. Sounds like repairs, or could be even leasehold improvements. So that should be capitalized. Lots of things can come out of poking into those accounts. So that's just another thing when you're reviewing the month-end close of your businesses. A couple things to hone in on. Look at your reports on a trending month-over-month platform so that you could see trends. Look at these miscellaneous uncategorized accounts. Take a look at your bank reconciliation. You can get some pretty good information out of that, and it also helps the internal controls of your operations. So with that, let's see. We do want to hone in on KPIs and then dashboards. We did actually ask a polling question on the KPIs, and it did look like it was split 50-50. Actually, no, there were more no's than yeses. So great. Let's have a conversation, guys. Again, one of the great things is that we are having Fathom with us in our next session, which is 2 weeks from today. And that is a dashboard platform, and they could talk to you. You could put in a lot of KPIs in there and start monitoring them. But let's talk about first, what's a KPI? I will also tell you that in our LinkedIn page, there is a podcast. It's about 1.5 years old, where I do go in depth on KPIs. So might want to check that out too, give you some ideas. So KPI, key performance indicator, that's what that means. And so you folks might be asking, well, which KPIs should I be looking at? And my answer is, what are your goals? Because the way it really works is you set your goals, you strategize and set your goals for your business. Then you determine, okay, how am I going to measure this? How am I going to measure if I met my goal? And you set up a KPI that will help you measure that. So for example, one KPI or one goal could be, I want to increase my recurring sales by 20% and increase my new sales by 10%. So what you would do is you would have your accounting department, your controller or CFO, start calculating that information for you so you can start seeing, are you meeting that goal? One of the great things about a KPIs is that it's good to do that monthly so that you can see trends, you can see net changes, you can see variances. Maybe you're going the different direction. You're not getting the new sales that you wanted. You're actually getting more recurring sales. So that is just an example. I do think that one of the things that you might also want to look at is, How much is it, how much time am I spending on new sales? Maybe I shouldn't focus so much on new sales. Maybe I want to focus more on my recurring sales because less expense. It costs, they always say it costs more money to bring in a new customer than to keep the customers you already have. So again, KPIs can give you some pretty good insight on that. One very popular KPI is obviously your gross profit margin. We did talk about that earlier, where Joy popped in the P&L in Excel by month, and she showed the gross profit margin trend. So if you do look at that, guess what? That's a KPI. So maybe you are looking at KPIs and you don't even know it. EBITDA is another KPI that is very important. I also just, again, it depends on your goals. It depends on your industries. So happy to have a conversation with you about this. But a couple other popular ones are the quick ratio. And what is it? I'm not going to go too much into what the calculation is, but a quick ratio is a great way to see if you have enough current assets to pay off your current liabilities. You want to keep your eye on the cash, right? And make sure you're fully utilizing your current assets and not leveraging yourself too much with liabilities. So quick ratio is also an excellent KPI to look at. I did mention about customers. So there is the average customer acquisition cost. I've started seeing that a lot, mostly with SaaS companies. So software as people who have a software as a service. There's a lot of that going on out there. So I have started seeing that they're looking at their customer acquisition costs. And so basically it's what is it costing me to bring in a new client? And a lot of times that number can be higher than you think. So a great decision that you're the business owner and management can make is, do we spend so much on marketing or do we focus more on client retention? Where should we spend our resources? Because resources are limited, right? So we want to make sure that we are optimizing our resources the best way we can. There's also what I like, and I've spoken to some of the clients about this, particularly in the food industry, is some of the productivity KPIs. So revenue by your labor force. So you might want to take a look at that number. How much revenue are you making versus in comparison to your number of your employees, so that you could see if that number is looking good. And do you need to streamline, or do you need to hire more? Or would bringing in an additional salesperson double your sales? Information like that is what you can get out of KPIs. It starts with your balance sheet and P&L and all these reports with QBO. So I want to drive that point home. It also starts with having the right accounting infrastructure in place. So once you have that and you can use this fabulous reporting that QuickBooks already provides you, and you can do some calculations, you can have some KPIs going. I do want to stress that there are dashboard applications out there that will do some of that math for you, so you're not doing so much Excel. Also, one of the things about these dashboards that are out there is that it gives you good visuals on your KPIs or ratios. So for instance, if what I've seen on some of the dashboards, it's, let's say you have a certain KPI, your gross margin, gross profit margin, and it went down a month, it'll kind of highlight that for you. And then some of the great dashboards might even say, well, what expense was it? Was it your materials? Was it your labor? You can drill down on that. Also, in some of these dashboards, it could have charts and graphs and widgets and all of these fancy, cool tools that'll just really highlight the key data that you need. And again, it helps you manage your KPIs, look at trends, net changes, and variances. And all it does is give you the information you need so you can strategize, come up with your goals, and execute. So I really want to drive that point home. QuickBooks Online, again, we are going to have a panelist from Fathom with you next week, in 2 weeks, and can kind of walk you through a few things. And I think you're going to be impressed with what you see. QuickBooks Online, there is already a dashboard to you. And there's also a version that has an even more interactive dashboard. I am going to let Joy show you that right now. Take it away.
So thank you. So the dashboards that we currently have, we talked about this a little bit in our first session. I just showed this to you kind of as you sign in. You're able to see some quick dashboards, and when you're doing the setup page, it's this link here, the business overview. It does some quick visuals like what she was talking about. But what's kind of exciting is QuickBooks Online is actually rolling this out right now. This is the Q2 2021 release. And so they don't have it again in the sample file. So I took some quick images so you could see what they would look like. So on a profit and loss, what you're going to soon start to be able to see, and again, they kind of roll these out. So one person is going to have it and the next person doesn't have it. I can't quite figure out the rhyme or reason of this. But if you can see this, and I'm sorry it's a little small, but there's a chart that you're going to be able to see right here at the top of your profit and loss. When you finally have these rolled out to you, you can click on that and that's going to pop up a chart for you. So you'll, again, if you're more of a visual person, less of a numbers person, and you want to just be able to see bar graphs or a chart, that's going to give that to you. So this see a chart option is coming. And then the performance center, again, I have a snip of this so you can see what this is. What that will do is that see a chart, you're going to click on it and that's going to bring you to this performance center. Again, this is coming out to all versions of QuickBooks Online. So you should be getting this pretty soon. They just don't have it in their sample company files yet. But this is then where you're going to get into some of those reports that Laura was just going over. You've got things like expenses over time and gross profit by time, revenue by time. You can look at your AR aging by certain periods of time. And so there's all of these different options that you'll be able to have. And this is going to be right in your version of QuickBooks Online. So we're very excited to see that this is something that they're going to roll out. This is going to be so much better for the business owners to be able to go in and quickly take a look at this. Also with the KPIs, what this will allow you to do, because you're able to choose your own industry, there's some of these reports, again, that are going to be built right into QuickBooks Online that will compare your industry in your area in comparison to all of the others. So if you're a dog groomer in Texas, and you want to know about all other dog groomers in Texas, you're going to be able to compare what you do sales-wise, revenue-wise, employee-wise to those other companies. So some great features that are coming out. So be watching for that. We're going to be staying on top of it. We're excited about this because of the information that it gives back to you, which is what we want to, you need to be able to have those decisions or have those access to that information so you can make better business decisions. So very excited about those features that are coming out.
Yeah, it's good that, QuickBooks is a very innovative company, and it's good that they're listening to what the users are requesting. And again, in the session 2 weeks from now, we are going to have somebody from QuickBooks Online present. So we are trying to stay ahead of technology and bring that information to you, because all it does at the end of the day is help you. So again, there are more dashboards other than Fathom. We just brought Fathom on because we already know some of the people there, and also a lot of the features in QuickBooks, and especially the QuickBooks Advanced, is powered by Fathom. So I know that there is a strategic partnership between QuickBooks Online and Fathom already. So it's a great place to start. But again, you could probably Google dashboards and find all sorts of companies out there, constantly evolving, constantly changing. We want you to stay with technology just as much as we stay with technology, or try to. We're never going to stay ahead, but we try to stay in the know of what's going on with technology. Again, so I think we are done with today's session. I do want to bring in a few announcements and a few things to run by you. Send over your questions. We can keep, you can email us any questions that you have of things you want us to go over. We did mention that we are starting to put together a summer school program and also a back to school program. So one of the ideas we had is we want to hear from you. What questions do you have about QuickBooks? What can we help you solve? What can we help you with? So send those over. We would love to hear from you. We will be reaching out to you as well to have a dialogue if there's anything we can do to help you. But again, start following us on LinkedIn. We are really ramping up on what we are providing to you on LinkedIn. We want it to be your go-to resource for information, not just on QuickBooks, but just business trends and strategies going forward. But with that, I think we've given you guys an extra 5 minutes. So we hope to see you at the next session. That one probably will not end 5 minutes early because we do have 3 fabulous people from 3 of the top innovative companies coming out to join us. So again, we're happy that you joined us, and see you at the next one. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.